problem is they're expecting something else. Right? So I guess they're probably expecting what they saw before, which was like a list of states and then a list of, if you go into that, counties, and you go into that.
Are you here on behalf of Eric? Sort of.
All right. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to the Form 477 webinar. Thank you for joining us, both to those of you who are participating online, as well as those of you who are here in person. Our goal today is to explain the new filing interface for Form 477. We are going to do a demo and a walkthrough of the different sections of the site. And just as a brief background, the interface was created to incorporate changes to Form 477 that were adopted by the FCC in a June 2013 order. And those changes were approved by the Office of Management and Budget in June of this year. The key change to the form is that the FCC is now collecting data on broadband deployment that was collected by NTIA through the State Broadband Initiative for the past 3 years and has been used to populate the national broadband map. A few housekeeping items. If you are watching online, we recommend you may want to follow along on your computer if the screen presented through the streaming webcast may appear a little blurry or difficult to see. It might just be easier to open up another browser window with the actual interface. We will be taking questions at the end. For those of you participating online, please send the questions, email them to livequestions, all one word, at fcc.gov. And for those of you who are here in person, you can either put your questions on a 3x5 card that I think we've provided. We'll also have a wireless microphone at the end if you'd like to ask your question that way. And our next webinar, we'll be doing a second one. We are going to hold that on Friday, September 5th at 2 p.m. And you can also participate online or come to the commission in person. So with me here, I have Suzanne Mendez, who is a program analyst in the Industry Analysis and Technology Division of the Wireline Competition Bureau. In addition, Ken Lynch is an industry economist, also in the Industry Analysis and Technology Division of the Wireline Bureau, as well as Ellen Burton, who's an assistant division chief in the same division. And from the FCC's Wireless Bureau, we have Melvin Del Rosario, who is a technical advisor in the Technology, Systems, and Innovation Division. And I am now going to turn it over to Suzanne, who's going to talk through the first half of the interface, and then I will be talking through the second half. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Okay. Once you click on the link to the new filing system, you are brought to the login page. You log in the same way you did within the previous Form 477 filing system by using an FRN and its associated password. Please note that if you are a new Form 477 filer and do not have an FRN, you can register for one at this link. If you have forgotten your password and you know the answer to the security question, you can reset your password online. Otherwise, to reset your password, you call the support number listed here and press option 1 to be connected with a live representative who can help you update your password in real time. When logging in, you must enter in the entire 10-digit FRN number, including any leading zeros, and please do not include any dashes or spaces. If you do not enter in the entire 10-digit FRN number, you will not gain access to the filing system. We'll go ahead and log in. Once you successfully have logged in, you are brought to the main menu page where you can create an ILEC or a non-ILEC filing. We will go ahead and create a new ILEC filing. You are then brought to the filer information page. Please note that all fields with asterisks are required fields. Now you will see that the provider name has been pre-filled for you based on the FRN that was used to log in. If for some reason the provider name is incorrect, please go ahead and edit it as needed. Next is the holding company common control name. Please use the drop-down list to select your holding company common control name. And if it happens to not be listed within the drop-down list, to the right of that field, you can go ahead and enter in the holding company name. And for future filings, we will add it to the drop-down list. The operations field has already been pre-filled for you based off what was selected from the main menu screen. Moving along to study area codes. All ILECs must enter in all applicable study area codes, and any non-ILECs that have study area codes must enter them in as well. The filing system will accept multiple study area codes. Let me go ahead and enter a couple in here. And if you accidentally made a typo, it's easy to remove a study area code. As we go through here, you will see that there are some built-in tooltips. If you hover over them, they provide some additional explanatory information. And one quick note, going back to study area codes real quickly, if you're a non-ILEC and have attempted to enter in study area codes and were unsuccessful in doing so, we have updated the study area code list, so non-ILEC SACs are now included. In the next field, you enter in Form 499 filer IDs for your company. Once again, the filing system will accept multiple entries. I'm going to enter in a couple. If your company has a website, you go ahead and enter it in here. Now we get to the contact information. You will need to provide information for an emergency operations contact. This should be an individual who can be contacted to provide network status information in case of a natural disaster or other emergency. If you are interested in providing more than one emergency operations contact person, please feel free to add a backup contact person to the explanations and comments section of the form. I'm going to quickly fill this out. Oops. One key thing also to keep in mind as we're completing the filer information page, if you do not have information for any of the required fields and you attempt to click on Save and Continue, you will not be able to move past this screen until all of the required fields have been completed. As well, it's important to keep in mind that if you enter in this information and click on the Cancel button, it will not be saved. Moving along, at the bottom of the page, there are non-disclosures. If you feel that any of the subscribership and or mobile deployment data are confidential, you can check these boxes. However, these boxes are optional and are not required in order to move on. Once you're done, you can click on the Save and Continue button. Oops. Let me fix this. If you get any errors, you will need to fix them prior to moving on. Now you are brought to the submission menu. Within the status column, you will see that data has now been entered for the filer identification section. From here, you will see that there are fixed and mobile services. You can also see at the top of the screen, there are links for main menu, Form 477 instructions. It provides the FRN, company name, the type of operations, data as of, and you'll see that the current status for this filing is original in progress. Oops. For facilities-based providers of fixed broadband service, you are required to complete the fixed broadband deployment and fixed broadband subscription data sections. We'll go ahead and go into fixed broadband deployment. Within this data section, you can only submit data via a CSV upload file. Please keep in mind that this is the only part of the Form 477 which collects data at the census block level. This data section is a new filing requirement for facilities-based fixed broadband providers. Ultimately, you will upload a file which provides a list of all census blocks in the broadband in which broadband service is available to end users within a provider service area. The More Info link, if you click on that, provides definitions on terminology used within this section. And before I go ahead and upload a sample file, we have links that show you how to format the upload file, which is found here. We have also built into the web interface sample files and Excel templates. And in order to go ahead and upload a file, select Choose File.
Suzanne, we interrupt just for a second.
Yes.
Some people are apparently trying to get into the old system, so could you give the URL?
New URL.
Oh,
The
sure.
URL to get up to log on?
Sure. Let's see.
Sorry, so some of you have been asking for the new URL rather than the old URL. The new one is https://apps2, and that's apps2.fcc.gov/form 477.
Okay. Going back to uploading file, you click on Choose File.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Also, sorry. Repeat that if the screen is not visible in the demo, which several people are saying, if they would actually sign into the online.
Okay, for those of you, in cases where if the screen is not visible to you, we would like to encourage filers to go ahead and actually, if you're close to a PC or laptop, log on so that you can walk through this with us.
Log on to the actual filing system.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm going to now locate a fixed broadband deployment file and quickly upload that.
There's a shortcut.
Okay, yeah.
If you go to favorites on the left,
Within here?
desktop, scroll down, shapefile samples. There you
okay.
go. Should be the usual.
Yep. Once you've selected a file, you click on the Add File button. And once it's displayed here, you go ahead and click on Upload Files. Please note you can add additional files here if you'd like to. And then once you're ready, you click on Upload Files. The file, we provide status here. It first goes through virus check, and second it goes through validations. Once those are completed, it will show you done and state that the file has been successfully uploaded. Otherwise, if the file contains any errors, it will display those errors to you. One thing to keep in mind within this filing system, you cannot submit if you have any files or errors within a submission. If you have any upload files with errors, you will need to remove the file, correct it, and re-upload it to the system.
Sorry, this is going to take about maybe a minute, a little over a minute to go through virus check, and then maybe a few more seconds to go through validation. But while that's happening, what I usually do is go on to do something else, and it'll continue working.
Okay, if we want to go ahead and move on to fixed broadband subscription. This data section is not new to Form 477 filers, and data are still collected at the census tract level. You have the option here to either enter in data via interactive data entry or via an upload file. I'm going to go ahead and select interactive data entry. The upload file feature is pretty similar throughout the entire filing system. One thing to keep in mind for interactive data entry, you can only enter in up to 100 rows of data. So if you have more than 100 rows of data, you're going to need to upload a file with this information. Okay, we'll set cable. Another thing to keep in mind is when entering in the downstream and upstream bandwidth information, it must be entered in using megabits per second and not kilobits per second or gigabits per second.
Or speed tiers like we used to.
Yeah, or in speed tiers as used to be the case. Just to give you an example of a conversion, if someone has an upstream bandwidth of 768 kilobits per second, that would be entered into the system as 0.768. If anyone out there is offering gigabit service and you had a 1 gigabit service, that would be entered in as 1,000. Another thing to keep in mind is you cannot use commas. If you use commas, you will get an error message. Let me show you. When you click on Add Row, so do not use commas. And another thing, when entering in interactive data entry, you cannot have duplicate records. So in any cases where, for this particular data section, the first 6 columns are the same, you would need to consolidate any unique records into one unique row of data. Otherwise, you will get error messages. I'll show you an example. So it states here there cannot be duplicate rows. State, county, tract technology, upstream, downstream bandwidth must be unique. In this case, we can remove one. Once you have entered in all of the fixed broadband subscription data, and as you go as you're entering in the data, you can occasionally click on the Save button. Otherwise, once you've entered in all of your data, you can click on Save and continue to Submission menu. We also want to encourage folks to please utilize the buttons that are within the filing interface, and if we have a back button, use this back button versus using the web browser back button. So if you were a facilities-based broadband provider and had no voice service, and that was the only type of service you provided, at this point, you've completed the filer identification page and fixed broadband deployment along with fixed broadband subscription. You could, at this point in time, go ahead and submit the submission. However, at this point, Ken Lynch is going to take over and explain fixed voice subscription.
You can drive if you want.
Okay, that's
Either way.
fine.
Okay. Suzanne's going to drive. I'll talk. Okay, so, well, we can start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So this is for fixed voice subscription. So this is a little different from the way we've been collecting data heretofore. So going forward, what we're going to try to do is get away from collecting data by zip code, which we've done in the past, and go down to census tract. And so the way this is set up is that you are prompted to enter in your census tract data first, and then what will happen is the interface will aggregate those data up to the state level, and then there'll be some additional allocations that you need to do with the data at the state level. So the idea was that we didn't want filers to have to go through the process of doing an allocation for every single tract. All right, so we have this kind of two-step process here. I think we can go through and do interactive data entry for this one because the upload file interface is the same pretty much for every section. So again, this looks much like what we saw in fixed broadband subscription. We can just create a track level record here interactively. Arkansas is good. Pick a tract. Okay, for service type, there's two choices here. We're going to consolidate the interface a little bit and collect old traditional style circuit switch data for invoice grade equivalents and interconnected VoIP subscriptions in the same part of the interface. You just have to tell us which one you're putting in. So let's put in voice grade equivalent lines for the first one, and some number of total, some number of that total that are consumer residential. Notice how those numbers are not percentages, so we've gone away. There's no place on this form where you can enter a percentage anymore.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, please.
We're getting a message that some people are having trouble hearing the audio. I'm going to give you information for a dial-in phone bridge. The number is 888-858-2144. Again, the number is 888-858-2144, and the passcode is 8926297. Again, the passcode is 8926297.
Okay, onward. Why don't we put in another tract for Arkansas, Baxter County, same tract. Okay, in this case, the first four fields need to be unique, so we can put this one in for iVoIP subscriptions and some numbers. Okay, and it would be great if we could do one more state. So we're putting in for another state, California, Alameda County, picking a tract. Let's do, it doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, save the work. Okay. At this point, we can just continue to state, and what the interface will do is roll everything up, and then take us to the local telephone subscription page, right, where we can just continue allocating these lines a little bit at the state level. So here we've got Arkansas, right, and there's about 4 ways we need to carve this up and split this pie. So overall, there's 2 sort of large sections we need to deal with, and one is lines that you've provided to unaffiliated providers, and the other one is lines that you're providing to end users, right? So we didn't have any information about lines you provided to unaffiliated providers at the track level, so we need to just put that all in now. Right. So the first cell is for for you to put in how many lines you provided to other providers as wholesale. And you can just egg that out if it's really 0. And then the second one is the number you've provided via UniL, right? And of course, for the lines that you provided to unaffiliated providers, specifically UniL, there's going to be no way that you can convert those into voice grade equivalents, so you just put in the number of lines. For lines provided to end users, the first way we're going to allocate those is by how they're sold, right? Specifically, whether or not the voice service was also provided with internet access service. In this case, let's say none of our 1,000 lines that we put in here are sold to the same customer with internet access. So by subtraction, all of them without internet. It automatically does that for you. The other way we need to carve this up is by product type. So you already told us in the track level data which lines are residential, which lines are non-residential, business and government, however you want to categorize that. In each one of those two categories, residential and non-residential, consumer, business and government, you need to split the lines up between which ones for which you're the pre-subscribed inter-exchange carrier, which ones you're not the pre-subscribed inter-exchange carrier. It all needs to add up. There are no more percentages, so it's not like an easy allocation anymore. Of the 900 lines, for example, here we have under consumer, we're saying that all of them are picked, right? So therefore, none of them are not picked. Still, it's up to 900. Same goes for the business and government column. All right. The next way you need to split this up is by ownership. So this part of the form, the local exchange part of the form, is kind of unique because it's the only part of the form where folks who are resellers are actually filing something. So in this situation, you need to say, of the lines you're providing to end users, which ones you own yourself, which ones you've acquired from an unaffiliated carrier as UniLs, and which ones you've acquired from an unaffiliated carrier as resale lines. Okay, and finally, we'll carve this up by take the same 1,000 lines for the state and split it up, allocate it by how the service is actually getting to the end user, what we're calling the last mile medium. In this case, we're going to say they're all copper. If there's no fiber, no coax, and no fixed wireless, just zero those columns out. All right, at this point, it's a good idea to save because we put all our stuff in. All right, and so much for Arkansas. If we can say next state, that should take us to California, which is the next state for which we've entered some voice grade equivalent lines. Okay, so Suzanne's going to just bump through the rest of this and enter some values, making extra sure that everything adds up correctly. Okay, and now if you click Save, that's good. And if you click Next State, what's going to happen? Nothing, because there's no next state. We're still in California. You're done with your local exchange stuff at this point. And if you say Finished, it's going to move us along to the interconnected VIP side, right? And if you had, we only entered one state for interconnected VoIP, but if you had entered more, it would go through the same process, right? Take you state through state through state. Okay, and again, same sort of thing we're doing here, allocating the lines we put in at the track level now rolled up to the state. Okay, so there's sort of three sections to this part of the form. The first one being the grand totals, and there's really nothing for you to do there. The interface has provided you the total number of interconnected VoIP subscriptions you've entered at the track level. It's told us how many of those are consumer, and thus by subtraction, how many are business and government. More important is the next bit. So the next two categories are left for you to allocate your subscriptions between which ones are what we're calling over the top and which ones we're calling all other or everything else. So this is a little bit different than the way we had been doing it in the past. So it's a good idea to, could you scroll up to the top?
Yes.
It'd be a good idea to like open up this little deal here, this PDF, and read about what we had been doing, which is kind of what we described here at the top, and what we are doing now. So there's a slight change in the way these subscriptions have been classified. Okay. And it's laid out pretty clearly here. We can go back. Okay, so for those subscriptions that are what we're calling over the top, in other words, situations in which you're providing iVoIP service to a customer without also selling that same customer the pipe over which those services are conveyed, right? We're going to say we have none of those, right? For all other, which is basically everything else, you want to split those up by how many of them are residential, what we're calling consumer now, versus business and government. That's the first row. You also want to split them up by how they're sold. Is this interconnected VoIP service also sold to the same customer with internet or not? And then finally, how does it get to the customer? Is it fiber? Is it coax? Is it satellite? Fixed wireless? Is it copper? And now we can just save.
And they can't leave blanks.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah. If you have something that's like, if for example, none of your, whoops, did we leave a blank? Suzanne made an addition mistake. So you just can't go putting any old number in there. Let's see what we got.
Yeah.
Good. And then if we click next state, what's going to happen? Nothing. Because we're done. Okay. And fortunately it says data entered. That's good. And now Chelsea's going to take us through some mobile stuff.
Okay, so the sections on mobile services must be completed by facilities-based providers of mobile broadband and or mobile voice services. Mobile broadband providers must complete these first three: mobile broadband deployment, service availability, and subscription. And mobile voice, also known as mobile telephony providers, must complete the last two on mobile voice deployment and mobile voice subscription. And just like on the pages for the fixed services, the pages on the mobile services do have pop-ups here for more information on the terms that are used here and their definitions. So click on that. That will come up and gives you some more information related to who's required to file and what type of information you have to submit. And just to summarize, a mobile provider is considered facilities-based if it serves customers using its own network facilities and spectrum for which it holds a license or has a right to use through a spectrum leasing arrangement. And as far as the definition of mobile broadband service is a service that allows end users to receive information from and or send information to the internet from a mobile device and using a mobile network at information rates exceeding 200 kilobits per second in at least one direction. Okay, so on the mobile broadband deployment page is similar to the fixed broadband deployment in that it is only, information can only be submitted via file upload. However, unlike the fixed broadband deployment, the mobile broadband deployment, as well as the mobile voice deployment, data is submitted in a shapefile format. And for those of you who are not familiar, a shapefile is a commonly used format for using, storing, and displaying geospatial data. And in the context of this filing, it is basically a map of the polygons that represent network coverage areas. And here on the page we have a link to more information on how the shapefile should be formatted. Just open that. And in addition, we also have a template available, and We do strongly encourage you to use this when you are generating your shapefiles. It will help ensure that you are using the correct data type in the different fields of the data table associated with the polygons, and I think will help avoid some of the errors that can occur in creating and uploading a shapefile. And so what we refer to as a shapefile is really a collection of between 4 and 6 component files that have to work together in order for the shapefile to work, and they must all be present. And when downloading the shapefile template, you will see those different component files. In order to upload the shapefile, those different component files must be compressed into a zip file. So don't try to upload the different pieces of the shapefile separately. They must all be combined into a zip file.
With no folders in that zip file, please.
Okay, yeah. In case you didn't hear that, the zip file should not include any folders nested inside it. So, one other thing to mention, the zip file does need to include a text.txt README file that should explain the methodology used to generate the map, including any necessary assumptions and an assessment of the accuracy of the finished product. Okay, so I'm going to go through the process here. It's similar to the upload process on the other pages. Start by choosing a file. Choose that. And then click Add File. The Add File part takes a little bit longer with the shape files than it does for the CSV files. And then when it appears, we will click Upload Files to begin the validation and processing step. So while this is going on, I'll just give a little bit more information about the shape files. Each shapefile should represent the coverage area for one mobile broadband technology in one spectrum band across the entire United States and its territories. So, for example, one shapefile could you could create one shapefile for LTE in the AWS band as one example. Okay, so now the file has been added, and you could go and add another file if you'd like before going to upload. Now I will upload the file. The shapefile for the mobile broadband deployment also has to include data on the minimum advertised upstream and downstream speeds or bandwidth that are associated with the technology in that spectrum band. And for each variation of technology, spectrum band, and upstream downstream speed, you do need to submit a separate shapefile. So if you have LTE in both the 700 megahertz bands and the AWS spectrum band, you should submit 2 separate shapefiles for each band. As another example, if you only offer LTE in the 700 megahertz band, but offered it at different bandwidths in different areas of the country, then you should submit 2 separate shapefiles showing the coverage areas of those different bandwidths. So now the interface has gone to the uploaded shapefiles page, and you can watch as the virus check and the validation is occurring here. In cases where you do not advertise your upstream and downstream speeds at all or for a particular network technology, then you should report the minimum upstream and downstream bandwidths that users should expect to receive within the area depicting the geographic coverage of the deployed technology in the given frequency band. Now, the data table that's associated with the shapefile, in that table, the network technology and the spectrum band are entered as two-digit codes, and this is explained in that formatting pop-up document. So, as an example, LTE is represented by number 83, and the 700 megahertz band is represented by the number 90. The speed bandwidth numbers are entered as integers in megabits per second with up to 3 decimal places. And just as with the data on fixed services, bandwidth information is not reported in a predetermined speed tier. It is now reported as an integer. Or a number with up to 3 decimal places, one for upstream and one for downstream. And for those filers who participated in the NTIA SBI program, for that, the mobile broadband providers reported their maximum advertised speed was used to determine the speed tier. Now, mobile broadband providers should report the minimum advertised bandwidth or the minimum bandwidth that customers should expect to receive for the technology in the spectrum band. And in the mobile broadband deployment section is where filers should submit coverage areas for technologies that are used to provide mobile broadband service. Coverage areas for technologies that are used to provide mobile voice service should be submitted in the mobile voice deployment section. So here we can see that the shapefile was successfully uploaded. You can see the DBA name, the company name, the spectrum code, the technology code, the file size, and an indication that it was successfully uploaded. If the shapefile had any problems, then an error message would appear, and you could remove the file and then go back to upload files to go through the uploading process again. So now we're going to return to the submission menu. And I had been entering data on the as an ILEC. I'm actually going to go back to the main menu and switch over. We had previously created a non-ILEC filing, and I'm going to show some data that's already been entered there for the mobile services. So on the mobile broadband service availability section, what's the difference between mobile broadband service availability and mobile broadband deployment? Well, in this section, we're asking mobile broadband providers to upload a list of census tracts in which mobile broadband service is advertised and available to actual and potential subscribers. The data are used to determine if there are any portions of the network deployment footprint that was uploaded in the mobile broadband deployment section, where service is not actually advertised and made available to actual and potential subscribers, but instead is used only to provide coverage for subscribers that are roaming from other areas. This was a part of the previous version of Form 477, but in that case, the filers were directed to report census tracts that overlapped the network coverage areas, and in that case, filers also had to associate a speed tier with that information. In this version of the form, no speed or bandwidth data has to be reported. It is just a list of census tract codes along with the DBA name. But in this case, the track should indicate where filers advertise service and make service available to potential customers, not simply where they have network coverage. So the file upload process is the same as it is on the other pages, and there are also links here to pop-ups for more information on the terms in this case and in the formatting in this case. And there's also a sample CSV file here and an Excel template here. And again, you just go through the three-step process of choosing a file, adding a file once it appears here, then uploading the file. I'm not going to go through that process here, but I will show you this is what it looks like, the finished product when a file has been successfully uploaded. And again, if there had been any errors, you would get an error message here and would need to remove the file and upload a new file. Right, so going back to the submission menu, I will enter some information on mobile broadband subscription. This section is similar to the previous versions of Form 477, except now the bandwidth data are reported as a number, not in a predetermined speed tier. And filers can report data for the entire country in a single filing rather than submitting it separately state by state. And in this section, filers have the option to submit by interactive data entry or by uploading a file. And again, the file upload is similar to the other sections of the form. Choose a file, add a file, upload it. And there are, again, sample CSV file, an Excel template, and information on the formatting and the terms. One thing to note here is that if you decide to enter any mobile broadband subscription data on the interactive data entry and then also decide to do a file upload, any information entered in the interactive data entry will be replaced by the file upload. In other sections of the form, the rows added through interactive data entry will be appended to anything submitted by file upload. Okay, so I'm going to go back and go to the interactive data entry. And I will select a state and then enter the upstream and downstream bandwidth in megabits per second. And enter the total subscribers and the consumer subscribers. And add a row. Now, in the context of mobile broadband, a subscriber is considered an in-service connection where the device and the subscription permit the user to access the lawful internet content of his or her choice over a mobile network at information rates exceeding 200 kilobits per second in at least one direction. This is the same as it was in the past, and if a single account includes multiple connections that meet these criteria, if there were multiple smartphones, for example, or smartphone and a tablet, then each connection should be counted as a separate subscriber in this section of the form. And then also in the context of mobile subscriptions, a mobile broadband connection is considered consumer if it is not billed to a corporate, non-corporate business, government, or institutional customer account. Now, I'm going to add another row for the same state. As with the other sections of the form, you cannot submit duplicate records. However, if you have customers in a state that are subscribing to mobile broadband service at different bandwidth combinations, then you should enter multiple entries for the state. So go ahead and do that now. And then save the work. And the bandwidths entered should be based on the advertised bandwidth of the highest speed or most advanced mobile broadband technology that's in the device used by the subscriber for mobile broadband service. If the bandwidth was advertised in a range, then enter the minimum, the low end of that range. If no bandwidth was mentioned in the marketing, then enter the minimum bandwidth that the customer should expect to receive for that technology in the device. One other thing to note, you can assign subscribers to a state based on the area code of the device's phone number or another method that best reflects the subscriber's location. This could be a billing address or the place of primary use address. We just ask that you describe the method that you chose in the explanations and comment section of the form. Also, mobile filers no longer need to report the total number of broadband-capable devices in service in a state. That was something that was part of the previous form, but is no longer required with this version of the form. All right, returning to the submission menu, we go to mobile voice deployment. The process here is very similar to mobile broadband deployment. The main difference is that there is no bandwidth or speed data associated with the shapefile. The filers just need to upload a separate shapefile for each combination of technology and spectrum band. And again, there are links to more information on the terms and on the file formatting, and there's another shapefile template available here which we encourage you to use. And the upload process is the same as on the previous pages. And if you go to the view uploaded files, here's what it looks like when a file has been successfully uploaded. Again, very similar to the mobile broadband deployment page. And now I'm going to go to mobile voice subscription. In this section of the form, the data must be entered interactively. File upload is not an option here. However, you're only required to enter one entry for each state in which you have mobile voice subscribers. And I'll just do a state. Pretty straightforward. Choose the state, enter the total number of subscribers, enter those that are directly billed or prepaid. It will automatically populate the fields. Subscribers that are not directly billed or prepaid. So in the directly billed or prepaid subscribers, you should enter subscribers that you directly bill or prepay for service directly to you. Subscribers that are serviced by resellers would be entered in this bar column, and this is the same as it was in the previous form. And similar to mobile broadband subscription, you can assign subscribers to a state based on the area code of the device's phone number or by another method that you think best reflects the subscriber's location. And again, we ask that you explain the method that you chose in the explanations and comment section of the form. You can save your entries as you work, and when you are done, you can save and return to the submission menu. This is the explanation and comments page. And in the instructions, as well as on our Form 477 resources page, which is our FCC webpage that has information, we have links to the instructional materials. And so these are all the documents that are pop-ups on the interface screen are also available on this page. And we are also planning to add one for the explanations and comments, which gives an overview of the different items that need to be entered here or information, additional information you may want to provide on the form. This gives you an overview of what can and should be entered there. To continue back to the submission menu. So I've entered data for all of the different sections on mobile services and am ready to submit the filing. And the interface will do some internal checks, and if filers are required to submit data for certain sections of the form, for example, if you submit fixed broadband deployment, you must also do fixed broadband subscription. If you don't, you would receive an error message. Also, if you had uploaded files with errors and had not removed them and replaced them with a corrected file, the interface would also give you an error message when you try to submit. If you wanted to delete your whole filing, you can click on this button for delete submission. But we will go ahead and submit. Are you sure? Yes. Okay. And now this takes us back to the main menu. And the filing that I just submitted, which was the non-ILEC filing for this FRN, the status has changed from original in progress to original submitted. And at this point, the data has been officially submitted and filed with the Commission, and you can click on View. You basically have read-only access to the filing that you've submitted. You can go back to the main menu, and if after you've submitted your filing, you've decided that you need to add something or make a correction, you can click on Revise and revise the filing. And this is basically creating an archive of what was already submitted, but then it will allow you to make changes to the filing and submit it again. And the archiving process, we want to note, was going from original submitted to revised in progress. If you have a large filing with a lot of data, that can, I just want to warn filers that process can take a while. So similar to some of the upload files, we recommend just, if necessary, kind of leaving and doing something else and coming back to it. One thing I also wanted to show is the filing summary page. And I'm going to do this for the ILEC filing that Suzanne had created. So if you click on that button, this basically gives a summary of all of the information that's been submitted. So all of the information from the filer identification page is here. At the top it shows the FRN, the as-of date, the ILEC versus non-ILEC, the status, when the last update was made, and here's the contact information. And then it shows each section of the form for which data has been submitted, along with a summary of this would be the files that have been successfully uploaded, here with a green check mark. I think it would be a red X if it had not been successfully uploaded. And the number of records submitted for each section of the form. So I think for filers who need a one-page summary of what they've submitted, the status of the filing, this is a good resource at this point for you to use for that. Okay. So just to close here, the filings are due on October 1st, 2014. We will be doing another webinar on September 5th. As I mentioned, filers can get more information on our website at www.fcc.gov/form 477. That will take you to this resources for filers page that's been updated. This provides a link to the interface, and this would provide all of the relevant commission documents and releases. This is a link to the previous filing system, filings done through December of 2013 for filers who might need to make changes to their older filings. And then we have a link to the page with all of our instructional materials, including the complete instructions, information, a summary on who must file the form, the user guide, which has a kind of step-by-step of how to use the interface, basically a paper version of what we have done today. Screenshots of the interface are available here. Frequently asked questions, which we have started and which we will continue to update based on input and questions we receive over the next several weeks, and a glossary of the terms that are relevant to the form. And again, here's information on each of the different sections, including information on the terms, the formatting, a sample file, and a template where relevant. So we do encourage you to refer to those documents. In addition, if you need help and want to talk to someone while you're going through the filing, you can call this number here, which is 877-480-3201, or submit a request for help using the e-support link here. Okay. So now I think we're going to take questions that have come in via the email, and we will try to get to as many of these as possible today. Those we don't get to, we can follow up with you with a direct response. If there's a question that we think pertains to multiple filers that we didn't get to today, we will add that to our FAQs. And again, if questions come up after today, we encourage you to call this number or submit a request for help using the e-support link.
Okay, we have about 20 minutes for those of you who can remain with us. And we have quite a number of questions, so I'm going to be going through them not necessarily in the best priority. It is not clear to me that we have return email addresses for these questions. So if your question is not answered, please feel free to resubmit it through the paths that Chelsea talked about. Okay, starting from the top, Chelsea, this question is for you. Can you explain what bandwidth to report for mobile broadband subscriptions again? Now, this is mobile broadband subscriptions, not deployment, maximum or minimum?
The short answer would be minimum, and that would be the bandwidths that customers are subscribing to in that state. I think that if a customer met the criteria for a mobile broadband subscriber, but there were various technologies included in the device, I think use the highest speed, most advanced technology. If, for example, that were LTE, then enter the minimum upstream and downstream bandwidths associated with LTE. I don't think you need to go down to the lower generation technology there. Use the highest generation, but the lowest or the minimum speed associated with it.
Okay. In a different area, a fixed wireless internet provider who resales a third party's interconnected VoIP service is asking whether they need to fill out the phone line section. The answer is yes. All fixed voice service providers, retailers of fixed voice service, either local exchange telephone service or interconnected VoIP service, are required to file voice service information on the form.
It's unique, though, right? This section is unique with other.
Yeah,
Right.
the term facilities-based is irrelevant for voice telephone service or interconnected VoIP service.
Right, so-
If you sell the product to an end user, then you are required to report the voice information services on the
And so
form.
someone reselling mobile,
Ken is pointing out that I've said fixed voice service. Mobile voice service, aka cell phone service, is different. Resellers of cell phone service do not file Form 477. Okay. Let's see. Should we switch back and forth between technical questions? How granular is the mobile broadband deployment data supposed to be?
It was supposed to be at 100 meters. Okay, the resolution there. Is that enough?
It's a shapefile question. It's all
yes,
yours.
for shapefiles we expect 100 meter resolution.
May we refer to the formatting document?
Yes, it is in the data instructions, the format of the data.
Is there a website that allows us to select our polygons of the area we want to submit as a shapefile?
Repeat that again?
Is there a website that allows us to select our polygons of the area we want to submit as a shapefile? Since this is a shapefile, I assume we're talking about mobile deployment.
Right. Census Bureau has shapefiles of all the counties, states, and other geographies, and you can use that as a template for your area that you cover and modify that to suit our format for shapefiles. But yeah, Census is a good place to get some type of geographic start for creating a shapefile to submit for 477.
What is the limit size of the shapefile to be loaded in the system? Is there any maximum size limit?
We don't have a maximum. We suggest, though, if you start seeing things in the gigabyte range, that we talk, so you can come in and give us a call if you expect to see anything exceeding or approaching gigabyte. We expect we can handle hundreds of megabytes, but once you get past that, please give us a call beforehand.
Makes any sense? Okay, let's see. I don't see that quote-unquote fixed wireless broadband providers will have to file going forward. Is that correct? No, it is not correct. Fixed wireless broadband providers who equip the spectrum on the last hop to their end-user customers' location are required to file Form 477.
That's a fixed.
We're talking about fixed wireless broadband, a group that is sometimes referred to as WISPs. The data collection does apply to WISPs insofar as they are reporting fixed wireless broadband service. If they are reselling the wholesale service of a telephone company as DSL service under their own brand name, they do not report resold telco DSL service. But they are required to report the fixed wireless broadband connections that they equip over unlicensed or, in some cases, lightly licensed spectrum.
And they should submit a list of census blocks, not a shapefile for the deployment section.
The question is, if you resell mobile services from a large carrier, then we only need to fill out the mobile voice subscription file. If you resell mobile voice service, if you resell cell phone service, you do not file Form 477. Certain mobile entities who are resellers have eligible telecommunication carrier status for the specific purpose of the low-income program. They have filed waivers of certain FCC requirements under those provisions. They are not supposed to file Form 477. If there are any questions about whether what I just said, which may not have been clear, applies to you, please email us with a follow-up question. Did that make any sense? No. Okay. We had a question of what database program is used to work with the database files in the template.zip file.
This is actually a shapefile question, right? So this person's asking what database program is used to work with the database files in the template. So there's a DBF file in there.
Yeah, they're DBase4 files,
Yeah.
but we highly advise not to manipulate those files outside of a GIS program. Those are associated with the polygons, the shape in the shapefile itself. So we recommend that you allow the GIS program to populate the DBase files and not try and manipulate them outside of the GIS program.
There's a question about, which I'm not totally sure I understand, but I'll get to the key point of it, I believe. In the deployment section for broadband, there is reference to a typical service interval for the type of service. We've had a number of questions about when we should report deployment information. Those of you who have participated in the NTIA State Broadband Initiative program may be aware that the data specification for that program, I believe, said if you could put the service up in 7 to 10 days. We have not adopted that precise 7 to 10 day language because we've had some questions about complex business services that might very well, the provider might be very well standing ready to offer in the normal course of business, but it would not literally be 7 to 10 days. So we don't use the 7 to 10 day language, but the concept is the same. If you are offering service and you can turn it up in the interval of time that would be typical for that service. For instance, if it's an asymmetric DSL, it might be one thing. If it's cable modem, it might be another thing. If it was a clearly business level service, it might be more than that, but it would still be within the typical interval. Then you stand ready to offer the service, and you should tell us that that service is deployed. On the other hand, if you had to undertake major new construction in order to get service in, that would not be within a typical interval for that service. And again, I'm not absolutely certain I answered the question that was intended here, so the person can follow up with a follow-up question if they'd like. I think we have a number of questions that we're just going to have to try a little bit complex. If multiple ILEC entity data is filed in a single submission, which we now allow, you could do a nationwide submission, how do you recommend the name of the filer is indicated on the filer identification, the holding company name? This could be a situation in which a holding company or common control entity owns several incumbent LECs in several states and they have individual names. Suzanne can correct me here, but I think it's really up to the filer. We would accept the holding company name as both the filer name and the holding company name. And within this new system, I'm sure this particular question comes from someone who understands exactly what a study area code is and exactly what a 499 ID is. And on the cover page for that filer identification for that filing, all the relevant study area codes would be listed and all the relevant 499 filer IDs would be listed. So I don't think there would be any question but what we would understand all the incumbent LEC operations that are involved. How do you print out the submission so one can have a hard copy? Can you print out this summary before one begins to see how entry will look? I don't understand the question, can you print out this summary before one begins to see how entry will look. But with respect to how do you print out the submission so one can have a hard copy, I think Chelsea went over how there is a button where you can produce a summary record. There is no way to produce a hard copy that will show every data element submitted. Does my CSV files need to be named in any special way other than .csv?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't even,
Whatever works for you.
doesn't even need to be .csv.
Okay. Does this make any sense? We have a number of questions, as we always do, about guidance on actually matching subscribers to census tracts. So I think we will try to take care of those offline, because the answers often involve pointing to particular URLs and so on. Okay, let's see. Okay, here's a question about the accuracy of deployment data. It says, we keep mentioning tract level data, yet the FCC Form 477 instructions, and he's looking at the June 25th version, which we've now updated, but it's substantially the same, document says block level data. Please clarify. The deployment data for fixed services is census block data. The subscription information for broadband services is census tract data, which is the same as it has been. What is new is that the voice services information, the local exchange information, and the interconnected VoIP information is now at the census tract level, where previously it was at the state level. So deployment information for fixed services is block level, subscription for fixed services is tract level, and subscription for cell phone services is state level. Would it be possible for a fixed wireless provider to submit a shapefile in lieu of a census block listing? Okay, this says deployment question. If not, let's see. Okay. Fixed services providers are not going to be able to upload shapefiles for their fixed wireless. Broadband providers are not going to be able to upload shapefiles. It would be the census blocks instead. And then there's a question about recommendations on converting a coverage map to a list of census blocks covered. That also may be a question that would be easier to follow up offline. However, with respect to the deployment information, and other folks will keep me honest here, particularly where entities have been participating in the NTIA State Broadband Initiative Program, or even if you haven't been participating, if your state mapping entity has managed to correctly depict your service area, substantial information is already available on the National Broadband Map website, or directly from, directly from the state mapping entity who developed that information, that would say the census blocks where you are deployed, as best the state mapping entity has been able to figure it out. The very last one of the SBI, the State Broadband Initiative data collections, is due October 1st. This data collection, the new Form 477, is due October 1st. This is a one-time opportunity, this one-time overlap, to see that the data are consistent between this 477, which you must file now, and the National Broadband Map information that is being collected by the state broadband mapping entity. So we would really encourage you to participate in the state mapping initiative program this last time and to use what information is already available out there. It is my impression personally from talking with Form 477 filers over the years that often we are talking with people from regulatory accounting or financial accounting operations, whereas it's quite possible that the people in your companies who've been involved with this national broadband map might not be from your organization, but there may very well be people in your company who have participated in that. So I would encourage seeking them out as a first step. But again, we will. This is another question where maybe we can follow up on the general geocoding questions. What is the definition of interconnected VoIP service? Interconnected VoIP service is defined in a section of the FCC rules. It's a 4-part definition. If you went to the one of those pop-up boxes, pop-up PDFs in the fixed voice section, it'll be stepped through that.
There it is. 47 CFR, section 9.3.
And depending on, the person there might be some finer points that the person would like to discuss as a follow-up question. But basically, it leaves the customer as IP is one key element. I have picked my state and county, but the tracked drop-down is empty on the interactive data entry of fixed broadband subscription. Do I have a problem?
We should have mentioned this before. I don't know if you noticed, but we've conducted this whole demo in Chrome. The interface tends to work best in Chrome or Firefox. We have on the fixed broadband subscription page a particular glitch that occurs in older versions of Internet Explorer. If it wouldn't be inconvenient to use a newer version of Internet Explorer or Chrome or Firefox, that would get around that problem.
In regard to the study area code, we are a non-ILEC provider, a VoIP provider, and we don't use study area codes. Can we use NA and move forward to the next screen? If you're creating a non-ILEC file, you don't even have to answer the study area code question.
Yeah. If you don't have a study area code, don't put one in.
What is a study area code and where do I get it from? And 499 IDs, where do I get those from? I believe there are links on the filer identification page that goes to searchable to lists of study area codes and 499 IDs.
And within our FAQs.
And there's also links within the frequently asked questions, the fact that we just posted. Every incumbent telephone company, a traditional telephone company, will have one or more study area codes and probably knows what I'm talking about. Anyone who files FCC Form 499A with the Universal Service Administrative Company, which means anybody who is a telecommunications carrier or an interconnected VoIP provider will have, almost anybody who does telecommunications will have a 499 ID. Or should have. Okay, I think we're going to get cut off in about 90 seconds. So I apologize for the several questions we haven't gotten to, and we will be going through them and seeing if we can boil them down into a couple of additions to our frequently asked questions. We do not offer mobile services, and we do not need to do anything with that part of the report, correct? If a part of the report does not apply to you, you can totally ignore it.
That's been the case heretofore.
And that's been the case heretofore. In some of the pages, if you get in there and start entering data, you're going to have to put in zeros, even if the true answer is 0. Correct. And if you don't, you'll get pinged to to make the correction before you can get the page accepted. But on the fixed voice subscription area, do you have to record each county that you sell local services, or just for the county where your offices is located? You have to, for subscription information, you report subscriptions based on where the customer's service address is. If it's deployment information, it would be where the service is offered. It would never be just where your headquarters is located.
But we don't have any, there's no fixed voice deployment data collected as part of this.
But it says fixed voice subscription area.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we'd better quit.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today and participating in the webinar. Thank you for your questions. Anything we didn't get to, we will try to follow up with you or create an FAQ. And if you're interested in participating in the next webinar, again, it will be Friday, September 5th at 2 p.m. And again, we encourage you to go online to check out the resources and contact our technical support representatives if you need help. And wait, do we have one more? Or
No, we're good.
No, we're good.
Okay. Yeah.
all right. Thank you, and I think we're going to sign off for today.